There is a quiet truth about the feminine that often goes unnoticed, misunderstood, or rushed past in a world obsessed with achievement, outcomes, and noise. It's this: the feminine doesn't just want to be loved, she longs to be worshipped softly, not in a grand, performative way, not with gifts or gestures that scream effort, but miss presence. What she desires is subtle, sacred, a kind of reverence that can't be faked, bought, or rushed. And when it's missing, something deep inside her begins to close. This desire isn't rooted in vanity. It's not about placing her on a pedestal to be admired from a distance. It's about emotional closeness. It's about the way she wants to feel in your presence, noticed, cherished, and chosen, not just once, but again and again in the quiet moments. She wants to feel that her softness isn't a liability but a gift, that her openness isn't a weakness to be protected from, but a portal into something deeper, that her emotional world, however layered or wild, is not a burden, but an invitation. Behind every softness is a sacred strength, one that doesn't demand attention, but transforms everything it touches. Softness has often been mistaken for weakness, especially in a world that rewards speed, force, and dominance. But softness, true softness, is not about fragility. It's about resilience that bends but doesn't break, grace that holds without needing to grip, and a quiet courage that doesn't scream to be seen. It's the strength to feel deeply, to stay open in a world that tries to harden you, and to lead with the heart even when it hurts. There's a reason people trust those who are calm in chaos, who listen more than they speak, who respond instead of react. That kind of presence doesn't come from inexperience with pain. It comes from surviving it and choosing not to let it close them. Softness is not nada vitae. It's the wisdom that knows you don't need to fight everything to protect yourself. Sometimes the greatest defense is discernment, not defensiveness. It's knowing your energy is precious and offering it intentionally, not out of fear or obligation. In relationships, this kind of strength changes everything. A soft woman is not someone who needs saving. She's someone who needs safety. She's someone who has chosen to stay tender in a world that gave her every reason to armor up. Her softness isn't a lack of boundaries. It's the product of having walked through fire and chosen not to become it. She knows what it's like to be dismissed, to be misunderstood, to be told she's too emotional or too sensitive. And still, she chooses to feel. Still, she chooses to love. That's not weakness. That's bravery. We often assume power is about control, but real power is the ability to move people without force, to create change through presence rather than pressure. Softness does that. It disarms defenses. It invites instead of demands. It listens instead of lectures. And when it's met with understanding, it deepens everything around it. That's why the softness of the feminine is not passive. It's active, dynamic, alive. It's a force that shapes the emotional tone of a space, not by taking it over, but by softening it into safety. There's a sacredness in that, in the way someone can be both open and unshaken, to cry without apologizing, to express need without shame, to be gentle without letting themselves be stepped on. That kind of person teaches us what true maturity looks like, not performance, not pretending, but presence. It reminds us that emotion is not the opposite of strength. It's part of it. That being nurturing is not the same as being submissive. That letting someone in doesn't mean losing yourself. When you're in the presence of someone who embodies this, you feel it. You breathe easier. You speak more honestly. You soften too, because softness gives permission. It tells you it's okay to exhale. It says, you don't have to prove anything here. Just be. And that's the real power. Not making people bend to your will, but creating an atmosphere where their walls fall without being asked. To honor softness is to honor life itself. It's to understand that strength doesn't always look like steel. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it's the hand that holds, not the one that grips. Sometimes it's the heart that stays open even after it's been broken. And in a world constantly trying to toughen us, the ones who stay soft are quietly the strongest of all. Worship isn't control. It's celebration. And in the context of love, especially when honoring the feminine, that distinction matters more than most people realize. To worship someone is not to own them, mold them, or place them in a role that exists to serve your narrative. It is to see them fully, honor them freely, and reflect back the beauty they might forget in a world that often asks them to shrink. Worship, in its purest form, is rooted in deep presence. It's not about putting someone on a pedestal. They don't need to be elevated. They need to be seen, celebrated, and held with intention. Control is about fear. It seeks to limit, to box in, to define. Control tries to make someone predictable, manageable, less threatening to your own insecurity. It disguises itself as protection, but at its core, it's a response to the discomfort of unpredictability. Celebration, on the other hand, is about freedom. It allows someone to be all of who they are, even the parts that don't make immediate sense. It embraces mystery rather than trying to resolve it. When you celebrate someone, you don't reduce them to what's convenient, you meet them in their wholeness. To worship softly is to stay curious. It's to lean in when she gets quiet, not assume, but ask. It's to admire her complexity instead of demanding simplicity. It's telling her, through action, that her feelings are not too much, that her dreams are not silly, and that her sensitivity is not a flaw, but a doorway. And that worship doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's in the tone you use when she's had a hard day. Sometimes it's in the space you give her when she needs time to come back to herself. Sometimes it's just in noticing, really noticing, her effort, her energy, her essence. When a woman is worshipped, celebrated, and cherished in her fullness, something profound happens. She softens. Not because she's weak, but because she no longer has to be guarded. She becomes more radiant, not because she's trying to impress, but because she finally feels seen. She starts to give from overflow, not from depletion. She loves with depth because her soul is at ease, and that love, raw, wholehearted, unfiltered, is powerful. But it doesn't grow in a soil of control. It only thrives in celebration. Many people mistake love for possession. They think claiming someone means loving them deeply. But the truth is, love that tries to possess always backfires. It breeds resentment, stifles growth, and turns sacred connection into emotional confinement. Celebration is what love was meant to be. Witnessing someone's becoming, not trying to direct it. To celebrate her is to support her growth even when it challenges your comfort. To stand beside her, not in front of her. To love her loudest not when she's easy to love, but when she feels least lovable. In relationships, this kind of worship shifts the dynamic entirely. It's no longer about meeting expectations, ticking boxes, or keeping score. It becomes about co-creating something expansive, an emotional space where both people are free to evolve, to feel, to rise. You're not just loving the version of her that fits neatly into your world, you're celebrating the version of her that challenges you to expand yours. Worship, then, is not about making her yours. It's about helping her become more hers. And in that process, you don't lose connection. You build the kind that lasts. The kind that doesn't depend on roles or rules, but on reverence. Because real love doesn't seek control. It seeks to witness, to elevate, to cherish. And that's what makes it sacred. Safety makes room for surrender. It's one of the deepest truths in any intimate relationship, especially when it comes to understanding the emotional and physical rhythm of the feminine. Surrender is not something that can be demanded, forced, or expected. It's something that happens naturally when a woman feels deeply, consistently safe. Without that safety, emotional, physical, and psychological, there is no surrender. Only performance, guardedness, or silence. And so many relationships break not because love is absent, but because safety never had a chance to take root. To understand this, you have to stop viewing surrender as weakness. In reality, it's one of the most courageous and powerful choices a person can make. It means letting go of control. It means trusting someone else with your vulnerability, your softness, your truth. That doesn't come easily to someone who has lived through betrayal, disappointment, or emotional neglect. For many women, it's not that they don't want to open. It's that they've been taught, sometimes painfully, that opening can be dangerous. This is where safety becomes the foundation, not the bonus. Safety is not just about physical security. It's about emotional presence. It's about being with her in the tension, not trying to fix her, silence her, or minimize her. It's knowing how to hold space when she's unraveling and not flinching at her fire or freezing at her tears. When you show her that you're not going to punish her for her truth or disappear when she's not easy, that's when she starts to lean in. That's when surrender begins. Safety is built in the small moments. It's in the tone of your voice when she's afraid. It's in whether you remember what matters to her. It's in how you respond when she expresses a need. Do you get defensive or do you listen? It's whether you honor her boundaries, even when you don't understand them. It's not perfection that builds trust, it's consistency. The more you show up with steadiness, with empathy, with presence, the more her nervous system relaxes. The more her heart starts to believe, maybe this time it's okay to exhale. When a woman feels safe, she transforms. She stops overthinking her every word. She stops calculating how much is too much. She stops holding back parts of herself to avoid rejection. She begins to bring her full self, her fire, her softness, her sensuality, her soul. And that surrender isn't passive, it's magnetic. It pulls both of you into something deeper than attraction. It becomes intimacy that is not performative, but profound. It's the kind of connection where she's not loving from fear, but from freedom. For that to happen, safety must not be conditional. It can't be something you offer only when she's pleasant, agreeable, or validating your ego. It has to be steady even when she's in her storm. Especially then, because the true test of love is not how you hold someone when they're polished and pleasing. It's how you show up when they're raw, real, and unraveling. That's when she'll learn whether she can truly let go, whether she can truly trust you with all of her. And when she does, it changes everything. Her energy becomes electric. Her love becomes uninhibited. Her body, her heart, her presence all become more open, not because she's trying to please, but because she finally feels free to just be. That's the power of safety. It's not soft in a weak way. It's soft in a way that disarms defenses and invites depth. It allows the kind of surrender that isn't about giving up, but about giving in to connection, to truth, to intimacy that feels like home. Emotional attunement is the new masculine strength. Not because traditional strength no longer matters, but because strength without sensitivity falls flat in a world that craves connection more than control. For too long, men were taught that being stoic, detached, and emotionally impenetrable was the blueprint for manhood. But we're seeing now, in real time, that emotional numbness doesn't create trust. It creates distance. What builds lasting intimacy, real leadership, and grounded presence is the ability to attune, to truly feel what others feel, to understand the space between the words, and to meet people, especially women, not just with logic but with empathy. Emotional attunement isn't about being soft all the time or over-identifying with emotion. It's about being awake. It's about listening on more than one level. It's the ability to track what's happening in someone else, even if they're not saying it out loud. When a woman says, "I'm fine," but her tone, body, and energy are saying the opposite, attunement is what allows a man to pause and say, "I hear your words, but I feel something else. Do you want to talk about it?" That single moment of presence can be more powerful than 1,000 surface-level reassurances. This isn't something you're born with. It's a skill. And it's one of the most attractive, stabilizing, and rarest ones a man can develop. When you're emotionally attuned, people feel safe around you. They feel like they don't have to over-explain themselves. They relax because they sense you're not just present in body, you're present emotionally, mentally, energetically. That creates a foundation of trust that logic alone can never build. In romantic relationships, especially with women who are emotionally intelligent and deeply feeling, emotional attunement isn't optional. It's essential. The feminine doesn't open to force. She opens to understanding. She blooms in the presence of someone who can feel what's not being said, who doesn't invalidate her sensitivity, and who doesn't disappear when the emotional temperature rises. When a man can stay steady in the face of her intensity, not by shutting down, but by leaning in, he becomes someone she can trust with her heart. The old version of masculinity was built on the idea of dominance and detachment. But in today's world, that kind of posture is no longer enough. Strength now looks like knowing how to hold space without trying to fix. It looks like choosing curiosity over control. It looks like staying grounded when someone else is hurting, not by numbing out, but by being a calm presence in their storm. That's not weakness, it's mastery. And the benefits go both ways. A man who is emotionally attuned doesn't just become a better partner. He becomes a better leader, father, friend, and human being. He communicates more clearly, resolves conflict more respectfully, and builds deeper, more resilient connections. Because attunement isn't just about reacting, it's about responding with wisdom. It's knowing when to lean in, when to give space, and how to recognize that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply hold someone without trying to fix them. This kind of strength can't be faked. It's felt. It's in the way a man notices when his partner withdraws before she says a word. It's in the way he asks questions not to control the outcome, but to understand the feeling. It's in the way he regulates his own emotions so he can be a safe container for hers. And when that happens, intimacy deepens. Trust grows. Passion becomes safer to express. Love stops feeling like a transaction and starts feeling like a sanctuary. Because in the end, emotional attunement isn't just about understanding others. It's about understanding yourself so deeply that your presence becomes a gift to everyone around you. That is real strength. That is modern masculinity. And that is what makes a man unforgettable. What you celebrate, you deepen. It's one of the quiet truths about human relationships that often goes unnoticed, yet it shapes everything, from how love grows to how people either open up or shut down. Celebration is not about grand gestures or public declarations. It's about attention. It's about what you choose to notice, to honor, to name out loud. And whatever you consistently notice in someone, you help nurture. You help shape the way they see themselves. You invite them to become more of what you've reflected back. In intimate relationships, this truth carries enormous weight. When a woman feels seen, not just for what she does, but for who she is, how she thinks, how she feels, how she loves, she grows more into that version of herself. When you celebrate her softness instead of shaming it, it deepens. When you honor her emotions rather than dismiss them, she trusts herself more. And when she trusts herself more, she trusts you more. It becomes a cycle of growth built on reverence rather than resistance. People respond to the emotional mirrors placed in front of them. If you constantly point out what someone lacks, they begin to contract. If you only speak up when something is wrong, their nervous system starts to anticipate criticism, not connection. But if you're someone who sees the good, the effort, the beauty, even in the messy, in progress parts, they begin to feel safe. And safety breeds openness. Openness breeds intimacy. Intimacy makes room for everything we claim to want: connection, trust, and depth. The challenge is that most people aren't taught how to celebrate someone emotionally. We know how to praise achievements, but not how to honor essence. We give compliments, but we rarely offer acknowledgement. There's a difference. A compliment says, "You look great." Acknowledgement says, "I see how much effort you've been putting into yourself, and I admire that." The latter goes deeper. It tells the other person, "You matter, and I'm paying attention." And that kind of attention is magnetic. When you're in a relationship where celebration is intentional, even the hard moments feel more manageable. Because you know that your light is being seen even when your shadows show up. You're not walking on eggshells, constantly trying to earn love. You're resting in the assurance that love is present, even when you're not performing. That makes people braver. It makes them more honest. It makes them more willing to show you the unpolished parts because they've learned that your love isn't conditional. This doesn't mean turning a blind eye to challenges. It doesn't mean avoiding hard conversations or pretending things are perfect. It means building a relationship where the default posture is appreciation, not critique. Where the tone is encouragement, not control. Because in that environment, growth happens. Passion stays alive. And both people feel like they can expand without fear of losing each other. If you want someone to open up to you, show them that their openness is valued. If you want deeper intimacy, celebrate the moments when they let you in. If you want trust, honor the vulnerability it takes to offer it. You cannot force depth, but you can create the conditions in which it thrives. And those conditions are built, moment by moment, in what you choose to celebrate. So pay attention to what you magnify, what you repeat, what you thank them for, because the things you celebrate in another person become the things they start to believe about themselves. And in love, few things are more powerful than that. You're not just loving someone, you're helping shape who they become in your presence. And when that love is built on celebration, it doesn't just feel good, it feels like coming home. A woman who feels adored softly loves fiercely. Not because she's trying to earn love, but because she finally feels safe enough to give all of herself. There's a kind of love that only comes alive in the presence of tenderness. It's not loud or dramatic, but it is undeniably powerful. When a woman senses that she is cherished, not just for what she gives or how she looks, but for who she is at her core, her love deepens. It expands. It softens and strengthens all at once. Soft adoration is not about the top flattery or grand romantic gestures. It's about subtle, consistent moments of presence. It's the way you look at her when she's not looking. It's the warmth in your voice when you ask how she's really doing. It's the respect in your actions when you keep your word. It's being gentle with what's delicate in her. Not because she's fragile, but because she's sacred. That kind of adoration isn't performative. It's grounded. It's rooted in a deep appreciation of her spirit, her energy, her essence. When a woman is met with this kind of emotional care, she begins to unravel in the most beautiful way. She drops the guard she didn't even realize she was carrying. She stops monitoring how much she feels or expresses. She allows herself to become fully present. She stops holding back parts of herself to be more acceptable. She becomes generous with her affection, loyal in her energy, and wild in her devotion. Her love becomes electric, not out of obligation, but out of abundance. This kind of fierce love isn't about intensity for its own sake. It's about depth. It's about emotional richness. It's the kind of love that nourishes, heals, and strengthens both people involved. But it only becomes possible when the foundation is one of emotional safety. Adoration that is soft says, I see you, and I won't punish you for being vulnerable. It says, I'm here even when you're not perfect. It creates a space where her sensitivity is not a liability, but an invitation. A woman who is adored softly doesn't become passive, she becomes powerful. She brings her full emotional range to the table. She shows up with more creativity, more intimacy, more honesty. She becomes a force of nature, not because she's trying to impress, but because she's no longer suppressing who she is. And that kind of presence, that kind of fully expressed feminine energy is magnetic. It draws you in deeper. It makes love feel less like a performance and more like a sacred exchange. But this only happens when softness is offered consistently, not conditionally. You can't adore her one moment and withdraw the next. You can't offer tenderness only when it's convenient. You have to mean it. You have to embody it. Because women can feel the difference between being truly cherished and being temporarily flattered. They can sense when your attention is anchored versus when it's transactional. And they don't open up to inconsistency, they retreat from it. When you show her that you adore her for who she is, not just who she is for you, she begins to trust in ways that change everything. Her guard lowers, her laughter becomes more frequent, her eyes more alive. She doesn't just love, you feel her. In your bones. In the way she speaks your name. In the way she touches you like she's memorizing you. In the way she invests herself in your growth as if it's her own. So never underestimate the quiet power of soft adoration. It may look small on the outside, but inside her, it is rearranging everything. Making room. Making her feel chosen. Making her brave enough to give her love not just fully, but fiercely. And that kind of love isn't easy to find, but once you earn it, there's nothing more real.